Good morning, everyone, and welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Jane Albee, and I'm a member here at Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Our speaker today is Victoria Poling. Victoria is a Unitarian Universalist minister and spiritual director. She currently preaches at UU churches in the Salish Sea region and serves on the board of directors at Earth Ministry Washington Interfaith Power and Light. Victoria lives in Kent, Washington, with her partner David and 4 cats on the traditional Muckleshoot territories in the Green River watershed. I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chemakum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous friends and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. As we call in our time together, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. It is good to be together. Now I'd like to welcome Chris and Terry Copeland, who will lead us in our call to community. Hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able. Thank you, Chris and Terry. This morning, and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition, with words written by this congregation as our covenant. We are travelers.
We meet for a moment
in this sacred place to love, to share, to serve. Let us use compassion, curiosity, reverence, and respect while seeking our truths. In this way, we will support a just and joyful community, and this moment shall endure.
Our opening contemplation is by African-American mystic Howard Thurman. Give me the listening ear, the eye that is willing to see. Give me the listening ear. I seek this day the ear that will not shrink from the word that corrects, the word that holds up before me the image of myself that causes me to pause and reconsider, the word that challenges me to deeper consecration and higher resolve, the word that lays bare needs that make my own days uneasy, that seizes upon every good, decent impulse of my nature, channeling it into paths of healing in the lives of others. Give me the listening ear, the eye that is willing to see. Our responsive reading today is a poem written by Reverend Teresa Soto to the people who have mistaken freedom for liberation. Please join me in the words where it says congregation. To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. Being free is not a license, but a promise. And now I'd like to welcome Bo Olgren, our Director of Family Ministry, who will share our time for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. Today in RE, we are preparing for the auction that is coming up on November 18th. And so we're going to be creating coasters that you will all be very excited to buy at the auction next month. So those of you who are on the aisles, if you would please rise as you are willing and able and form an arch for our children, then we will sing to RE.
Again, we will play this once, and then we'll all sing it. Oh, never mind. Go now in peace. Lord of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. You may go.
Thank you, Bo. We acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. If you are online with us, you are invited to say hello in the comment section and tell us your name and where you're from. That section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen. If you are attending in person, please rise so that we may welcome you. Welcome. We are glad that you are with us today. We will now receive our offering, which today goes to J.C. Mash. Christina is joining us today. to tell us a little about the good this organization does.
Good morning. J.C. MASH started amongst a group of church people, just like here, that saw a need in people in the 1990s, and unfortunately, that need still exists today. Our mission is to strengthen and broaden the safety net of accessible medical care for all Jefferson County residents by providing free needs, assessments, treatment, and referrals in a comfortable professional environment. We do this every Tuesday evening at the Uptown Community Center, and we also do telephone and telemedicine visits. During COVID, we only did telemedicine visits for a while, but our new home at the community center has opened up the regular clinic visits once again. We are a volunteer organization with the exception of the nurse, Sarah Haight. People come to us for many different reasons. Some come because we are a free nonprofit organization, and others for a second opinion, and some because we are a non-traditional clinic and they feel comfortable to come to. Although we do see homeless people, that is not the majority of our clientele. We are, as mentioned, in the Uptown, across from Panamore at the Community Center. And our website is www.jcmash.org. We are always looking for new volunteers, and we have openings on our board at this moment. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Christina, for that information. If you would like to donate to this worthy cause, you have a few options. In person, the ushers will pass among you and receive the offering for those of you who are here. For those viewing online, text the amount you would like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of your screen, or go to our website, QUUF.org, and click on the Giving link, or simply mail a check to QUUF. Just remember to put JC MASH in the memo line. And we will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Chris and Terry's rendition of Lean on Me.
Sometime in our life, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on your brother when you need a friend. We all need somebody to lean on. I might just have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you'll just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Thank you, Chris and Terry. I would now like to introduce Larry Morrell, the president of our Board of Trustees, who has an announcement regarding the upcoming Wisdom Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. I guess we're leaning on each other these days. Breathe that air. The rain's finally back. We don't have smoke out there today. As Jane said, I'm Larry Morrell. I'm currently serving as the president of your Board of Trustees. And this morning I'm full of anticipation because this weekend, Friday and Saturday, will be our initial Wisdom Council process. 12 members of the congregation have been randomly selected and have committed to spend both Friday and Saturday, all day, helping to define our future, our shared future. When I spoke to you all last week, I reminded you, as if you needed reminding, that our world is not as familiar as it used to be. Just a couple of years ago, things were quite different. It seems some fundamental shifts have happened. Not just the pandemic I'm talking about, there's some unease, some dis-ease, if you will, about our world. And this unease makes everything feel a little bit off-kilter, just not quite right somehow. One experience we've all missed is being together. We've been missing the belonging. We have been longing to be together. Then we might reflect, belong to what? What do we want to be part of? Well, we can be whatever we can imagine. We can reimagine how we are together, how we belong to each other, how we practice our covenant with each other, and how we will adapt to the many, many changes coming at us like an avalanche and not get buried. Because as Charles Darwin reminded us, it's the survival of the adaptable that works. So we must adapt to survive. All are invited to join us this Saturday from 3 to 5:30, here or online. If you haven't registered yet, please do so we can get a good count so we can set up for social distancing. This process has a proven track record of addressing very difficult issues and has been used at our own Port Townsend Food Co-op over 10 years ago when the food co-op was facing a crisis that could have made the food co-op actually disappear. The vibrant co-op you see today is a direct result of that Wisdom Council process. We here have gone to considerable lengths to ensure this is an open, unbiased process. We're importing our facilitator from Austria. The 12 members were selected completely at random, filtered only by their ability to commit for 2 full days. This facilitator has also agreed to conduct separate training the following week to teach us this process known as dynamic facilitation. This is a 3-day seminar being organized by our Healthy Community team. A limited number of scholarships are available. If you're available to attend and would like to know more about this, you can look at the Friday update last week or ask any member of the Healthy Community team about the details. You also can email askhct@quuf.org if you want to know more. Now, this is a big deal. You can help us define our future. You can help us deal with this incredible rate of change. And we can relearn how to be kind and loving and caring to each other no matter what the future may hold. All are encouraged to attend in person if at all possible. If not, we have an online option. It's our future, so show up. We need all our voices. And now for something completely different. Begging your forbearance We will now have Teddy Fernandez describe some details about our upcoming auction. Teddy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Teddy Fernandez. I even have a visitor's badge. I'm Teddy Fernandez. I'm back with exciting auction news. You know, really, it's much more than an auction. It's our biggest fundraiser and a celebration of our community. Each year, our members and friends donate goods and services. All proceeds support the work of our mission. It's the perfect way to get more involved in QUUF, as well as share your passions and interests with friends, both old and new. And this year we'll be having an in-person event, so it's also a chance for us all to be together. I'm feeling warm and fuzzy just thinking about it. On to the news. One of the highlights this year will be the epic teddy bear slideshow, and you all have a chance to be in it, but we need your help. But Teddy, I've never been in a movie before. Well, I say we can all do this if we just bear down. All you have to do is send your picture of yourself into selfie@QUUF.org by November 4th. The goal is to have pictures of all of you, our wonderful members and friends. Hopefully, many of the pictures will have a teddy bear theme. The slideshow will debut with the auction event on Friday, November 18th. But on a more serious note, I've been told there are concerns about the donations this year. Will the auction end up being bare bones? Will the auction only raise the bare minimum? I said, that's nonsense. QUF is important to people, and those who can will give. I predict we will have an embarrassment of riches. Classes, meals, desserts, overnight stays, outdoor games, parties, movie and pie nights, boat rides, hikes, picnics, paintings, and more. Some wonderful donations have already come in, including a gorgeous 95-year-old quilt, as well as artwork by Karen Page and Diane Ainsworth. If you're still looking for ideas, you might consider offering a practical service like pet care or house sitting. How about teaching a class? Who doesn't love a blueberry pie or chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven? If you love to make sweets, you could donate a dessert. Yum, yum, yum. Tickets for the event on November 18th will be available before and after Sunday services starting today, and available in the office during the week. The suggested donation is $20. Those under 18 are free. You may use check or cash. Now please get your thinking caps on. We need lots and lots of donations. The link to the donation form will be found in your Friday update on the website or on the auction bulletin board by the office. The deadline for submitting donations forms is October 31st. Bear with me while I repeat the deadline. October 31st. With your help and enthusiasm, we'll have a honey of an auction. Thank you.
Thank you, Teddy. We're all getting very excited about the auction. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus we place this first stone, thinking in particular of those in the path of Hurricane Roslyn as it approaches Mexico. And now, within the congregation, we light a candle of remembrance for Karen Page. Thank you for all who attended her memorial service yesterday and shared your heartfelt memories of Karen. We light a candle of sorrow. It is with great sadness that I have to say the world lost a wonderful mother, grandmother, and human. For Doris, who passed away the 12th of October, she will be missed by all that knew her and the lives she touched. A life celebration will be held sometime next year. For any questions, you may contact Sienna Fox. We light a candle of joy for coming-of-age participants. We have 13 youth and 13 mentors this year, setting sail on a journey of examining beliefs and intergenerational friendship that just started this past Thursday. We light a candle of gratitude for everyone who dropped off food and donated to our Interfaith Wave food drive this year. We wrapped up yesterday with churches all around our community, ensuring that our food banks have the extra support they need as we head into the holiday season. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
Don't we all just need someone to lean on? In our reading today, a delightful woman named Sophia receives an unexpected call from a guest who invites her to do something that the guest can't do by themselves. This will be a story for all ages today. It's called Sophia's Guest and is written by Becky Brooks, who's a retired UU Director of Religious Education. Once upon a time, there was a teacher named Sophia. Sophia had been a teacher in her town for so long that the kids in her first class grew up, had kids of their own, and sent their kids to her class too. Nearly everyone in the town knew Sophia and loved her because not only was she an excellent teacher, she was also very kind. One day, when Sophia got to work, she found a note on her desk. Dear Sophia, I will be around tomorrow. I wonder if I might stop by your house for tea tomorrow afternoon. Your friend, God. P.S. I know you're a UU, so you can call me the Spirit of Love if you like. Well, at first Sophia thought it was a joke, but the more she thought about it, the more it didn't seem very funny. And she couldn't think of anyone who would play a joke on her like that. So then she thought, well, what if it wasn't a joke? What if the Spirit of Love was really going to come to her house tomorrow afternoon? She thought she'd better get ready, just in case. So on her way home from work, she stopped by the store and bought a welcome mat. And when she got home, she tidied up the house and brought some fresh flowers and put them in a vase. And then in the morning, she realized she didn't know what the Spirit of Love would like to eat. So she baked some bread and a casserole, and the cookies that were such a big hit at the church auction. And what about the tea? Did the Spirit of Love like iced tea or hot tea? She thought she'd better make both. And then she wondered, well, what if the Spirit of Love's favorite thing in the whole world was lemonade? She made some of that too. She was so nervous, she did not know what to expect. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Her heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a big breath. She opened the door slowly, and on the other side was the mayor of the town. Hello, Sophia. I was walking by and I smelled the delicious fresh baked bread. Sophia said, well, I'm so glad you're here. Come on in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Make yourself at home. Sophia and the mayor sat having a nice discussion when there was a knock on the door. And her heart went pat, pat, pat. She took a deep breath and opened the door, and on the other side was a group of children from her class. Hello, Miss Sophia. We were walking by, and we noticed the smell of fresh-baked cookies. She said, well, I'm glad you're here. Come on in. I'm expecting a very important visitor who you might want to meet. Come on in and help yourself to some of those cookies. So the children were giving the mayor some much-needed advice when there was another knock on the door. Sophia took another deep breath and opened the door, and it was her entire covenant group from church. Hello, Sophia. We heard the tea kettle on and all the laughter and thought you might be having a party. So all afternoon, people stopped by, lured by the yummy smells and the happy sounds. The townspeople filled the house and overflowed into the yard. They made dinner together and ate as the sun set and the moon rose. It was a great party. People were playing games and telling stories and playing music and quilting. Sophia forgot all about her unexpected and important guest by the time she waved goodbye to her friends, feeling very content at the end of the night. In the morning, though, she woke up and she remembered everything. She was confused. Whatever had happened to the Spirit of Love? All during her walk to work, she smiled and she waved at the people who had been at her party, still trying to figure out what had happened. When Sophia arrived at work, she was surprised to find another note on her desk. It read, Dear Sophia, I had such a wonderful time yesterday. The bread was delicious, the cookies divine. Tea mixed with lemonade is my very favorite. Thank you for being such a wonderful host. I hope we can do it again soon. Yours truly, the Spirit of Love. Our special music today is a beautiful tribute to the changing season by Sherri Porterfield called Something Told the Wild Geese. Our own Vaccinated Voices Choir is led by Pat Rodgers with Sheila Harwood at the piano.
Something told the wild geese it was time to go. Though the fields lay golden, something whispered snow. Leaves will green and stirring. There is water grow. Looking before feathers, something caution froze. No attacking orchards, steep with amber spice. On each democracy
so good to see you all here in the sanctuary this morning. And I'm so glad those of you who are watching on YouTube are with us. In our story this morning, teacher Sophia struggles when she receives an invitation from a mysterious guest, the Spirit of Love. She's a little scared and a little bit excited. Is someone trying to play a trick on her? Or could this be real? In spite of her fear, she allows herself to be influenced and prepares for the visit. Sophia could be any Unitarian Universalist choosing to respond from an invitation to an invitation from love. For hundreds of years, UUs and our religious ancestors have encouraged one another to trust that there is a love of which we are a part, and that this love promises somehow to invite itself into our lives and our relationships. So the willingness to be open to that kind of visit and the loving acts of preparation that Sophia makes are examples of how someone might act in covenant. A covenant is a mutual sacred promise. I'd like to talk about 3 aspects of this promise today. Probably most of you think first of covenant as a behavioral agreement, so we'll talk about that. Covenant is also a relationship with a reality that is beyond the human community. And finally, I'll talk about this promise of invitations from this great mystery that we call love. Covenants as behavioral agreements are a mutually sacred promise between individuals and groups to stay in relationship, to care about each other, and work together in good faith. And this is deeply important in our Unitarian Universalist context because it's really not automatic for each person or somewhat homogeneous group of people to know how to behave when interacting with people whose life experiences are and have been very different. This is something that we learn, and we learn how to do it together. And we remind each other how to do it so we don't fall back into old habits that didn't work so well in the past. Ones that might be rooted in historic power differences. I started this sermon with the image of covenant as a beating heart of our faith, and soon realized that didn't feel right. To me, it's love and trust that are at the beating heart of our faith tradition. And what holds that love and trust is our covenanted community, which is more like a quilt. So those of you here in the sanctuary, you can see today we are surrounded by quilts on all sides of the room. And those of you watching online, I hope at some point we can have our camera show you at least one of the quilts in our banners here. So when you look at these quilts, you'll see that each swatch of fabric has different patterns, different ways about it, and that there are boundaries between the swatches of fabric. And if each one of us is like a swatch of fabric, being in covenant means that we allow ourselves to be stitched up next to each other into a larger whole for mutual benefit and support. The quilt is a whole where no patch is made invisible, and no patch can choose to be invisible. Look, you can see every color on these banners. Each piece of fabric and each person in our community will be seen. So your choice to be part of this whole quilt means that it's your commitment and your willingness to be in covenant that makes you a Unitarian Universalist. And that means that your freedom to speak and believe according to your own conscience is sometimes balanced with, and sometimes in tension with, your love for the people to whom you are accountable in the community. As you know, Unitarian Universalism is not a faith of orthodoxy, which means right belief, where it depends on what you believe to be here. UU is a faith of orthopraxy. That might be a new word. Orthopraxy means right practice or conduct. In this public space of church, we learn and we practice together, and we practice many processes. processes of making choices, processes for listening, processes for speaking and sharing, processes for living out our values into action. And if you've ever served on a committee before, you know what I'm talking about. Lots of processes. Learning how to be together and renewing our promise to practice is part of what makes UU a chosen faith. Reverend Alice Blair Wesley's research on historic covenants reveals that this understanding of our faith goes back to early written documents created by the Puritans and the Congregationalist church covenants in the 17th century, written by Northern European colonists who settled in New England. These Congregationalist ancestors of UU were interested in a theology of organization, how churches should organize themselves in a spirit of mutual love. For example, the Cambridge Platform of 1648 calls on congregations to seek support from each other when they're having difficulties. And it's important to remember that in this historic context, in these colonies, there was no separation between church organization and town governance. That's why the roots of our UU covenant today are so concerned with governance practice. Our religious ancestors' covenantal way of organizing has also deeply impacted the way in which democracy has unfolded in the United States, which is why covenanting may seem familiar, yet hard to articulate as part of our tradition. It's part of the water that we swim in as residents of the United States. For example, two historic political documents, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut of 1639 and the Massachusetts Body of Liberties of 1641, written and adopted by Congregationalist religious ancestors, served as models for the U.S. Constitution. So the covenantal teaching of the church was carried over and applied to civil government. And as we know, there are many problems that these religious and civic ancestors of ours created and failed to address, such as the inclusion of all people and all people's rights. So the mutual sacred promise of our UU covenant is bound up in the wider community of which we are a part, and that is the political covenant between the US government and representatives and citizens. That's one aspect of covenant. Another aspect of covenant refers us to a reality beyond the human community. And our seventh principle recognizes that reality as an interdependent web of all life, of which the human community and the earth systems are a part. And our universalist theological heritage calls us to practice loving this web, loving our neighbor, and loving ourselves as a reflection of a larger love of which we are a part. And the reality of this love is recognized both within and beyond the human community. Not a distant love out there somewhere, but here. And we're invited to open our hearts to this love as a regular practice that will lead us to beneficial action. Of course, there are times when it's hard to open our hearts, right? And we say in those times that we are heartbroken. There are times when we stand out in the cold, looking in, feeling hurt or angry or confused, sometimes resigned to feeling excluded. And that's why we need spiritual practices as a way to get warm. When trust is broken, we need to know what works for each of us to open our hearts again to that promise that there is a larger love that will wrap us up in that quilt of comfort. Our early Unitarian and Universalist ancestors chose the path of spiritual practice and growth in faith, trust, confidence, and thoughtful discernment as their path to what they understood as a loving, intimate friendship with the God of their understanding. Rather than allowing God to be an authoritative being who randomly selected only some people for an ecstatic experience of conversion and salvation and heaven, they dropped that exclusive theology in favor of focusing on relational covenant with a loving God who cares, who is present with everyone, who suffers alongside us, and who helps us grow better at loving. This is important because when we feel cared for and comforted, we're able to get back into right relationship with ourselves and others. I'm sure you can think of a time when you were hurt and you were able to self-soothe or receive reassurance from someone. Maybe you went for a walk and came back into relationship with the more than human community. Maybe you got creative or played games, watched a favorite movie, listened to music. Maybe you talked to a friend. These activities, when they're enacted repeatedly with intention to return to a gentle and open and loving space within, these actions become spiritual practice. They're a learning tool that help us pause and step back, to become open and get curious enough to ask questions about what we are experiencing. We need this grounding in something bigger than ourselves and a way to connect to that warmth and care in order to do the harder work of covenant, which is asking for help, repairing relationships, reconciling, setting boundaries, asking for just consequences, and forgiving. So what do you do when nothing seems to be working? If you can't get calm because too much is going on and there is no comfort and conflict is frighteningly out of control, well, then there's a third aspect of covenant that may help with this. Theologically and historically, our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors understood that the covenant was initiated by a larger love. Not by us, but by this larger love who invites us to be in relationship with all life and with each other, and to become a people of that love, a people who practice love. So the promise that we make is to trust that when nothing is working, we can stop, and we can wait, and we can breathe, and we can listen for something unexpected. On our story today, remember, it wasn't teacher Sophia who sets out to try on loving in a different way today. She received an invitation to which she responded. And it was an attitude of trust that allowed her and that allows us to make that choice to open up. When love comes to call, we open our hearts and we make room. Can you imagine being open to some wild God, some spirit of love coming to your house? It seems like a fairy tale. How would you meet a guest like that? I know I feel humbled by Sophia's story because I'm not in a place where I'd have the capacity to bake all of those things. My life is more like a patchwork quilt of time and resources. So I'd probably make tea, and I'd ask my partner to make scones because he likes to do that. And then I'd borrow some folding chairs from my neighbors who really like to throw a good party. And then I'd just say, okay, here I am, doing the best I can do, and I'm ready to host you, and when you get here, I'll nudge a cat out of a chair for you. And that would be okay, because the capacity that any of us has at any given time to respond to something unexpected is limited, right? So the point here is that you don't have to have a lot of free time to practice saying yes to love. It starts with an intention. And in our story, Sophia's choice has delightful results. Her baking attracts neighbors and children and even her covenant group. Who can resist the smell of delicious baking? So what's noteworthy is that her circles widened beyond the school and the children she teaches, beyond her church covenant group, included the governing authority of her town, the mayor, and that these people in her life came together to connect up. They celebrated, they shared a meal and music, and her smaller circles became an interconnected web. Love made a way to connect all these people where there hadn't been a way before. Love leaned on Sophia to do this work, as much as she leaned on love to bravely open her door to her guests. So these are three aspects of covenant, and our covenant rests upon learning to love in very concrete ways. While Sophia's ways of embracing and offering love were to teach and bake and offer hospitality, there are many ways to offer love, and I trust that all of you have at least one, if not many ways. There's one invitation I'd like to invite you to consider this fall. Our Article 2 Study Commission has just released a draft set of values through which we can reimagine Unitarian Universalism. This draft has had a lot of input from many UUs in many congregations and is still open for more. And we're being invited to read the first draft with our hearts, with our curious and connecting thoughts, and then consider possible input. If you haven't yet seen the values, they're posted in the foyer on the bulletin board. It's an image that's a little bit like a flower with 6 values around a 7th, which is love at the center. This image reminds me of Sophia's story today. Are we being asked to be ready for the spirit of love to invite itself into our congregation? And will you and I take steps to arrange our lives in such a way that we can welcome that love, no matter who it is who comes to call? May it be so. Our closing song is hymn number 168, One More Step. Please rise and embody your spirit.
We will play this once, and then we're all going to sing it 4 times, 4 verses. Okay. Step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Please join us in our chalice extinguishing words, which are on screen. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Next week, Joseph Bednarik will be speaking on the topic, Searching for Free and Responsible. We hope you can join us. Our postlude today is the Kesh Jig, a traditional Irish tune played by Ida Domazlicky on hammered dulcimer.